Hey there folks, so today we're going to be carving a Mother Mary. This is a 1.5 inch version, and these are the 1 inch versions. And they're made using these stencils. So this is the one for the 1 inch version. You can see it's just under 6 inches, I think more like 5 1/4, something like that. And there's also the 1.5 inch version, so these have to be separated so they can actually fit in the packaging. You can see they're the same design. And there's also a 2 inch version. So this one's a little bit larger, as you can see. It's the exact same design. And so by 1 inch and 2 inch, I mean the blank that they're on. So this would be a 1 inch right here. Obviously the 1.5 inch is for that size block, and this is for a 2 inch size block. This design really complements a simple savior. So I do plan on making other biblical figures. Stay tuned and see what we come up with next. Okay, so to get started, just get our 1 inch block and I cut it down to size. All I use is the stencil. I kind of get it to that that foot long piece, and then I mark it where it needs to be cut, take it to the bandsaw, and I'm ready. So set this stencil up right next, kind of squared up onto the piece of wood right there, and then just trace out pretty much everything that I can. Okay, that looks good on that side. Let's do the other side. Okay. Now for the back, we obviously are not going to do the interior parts. We're just going to do the exterior profile. So just kind of line it up there. Okay, that looks good right there. Excellent. Now we can start carving. Guys, so normally I carve with this flex cut roughing knife, and it's served me pretty well. I've sharpened it quite a few times, got into the profile that I like exactly, but recently I received a package in the mail that had this knife. So this was formerly an OCC knife. Oi! Now it's been given the magic touch by Mr. John Dunkel, and my understanding is that this is a very rare piece of equipment. So this was gifted to me, and my understanding is that this is kind of like the carving Excalibur, if you will, you know. So I like the profile of it, I like the mirror polish that it has, and messed around with it a little bit last night, and it seems to be doing the job pretty well. So we're gonna give it a try in this video. Not really a video review, but saying goodbye to flex cut roughing knife for today, and giving Mr. John Dunkel a warm welcome. Alright, so for this piece, what we're going to do first is take off this empty space over here, and then pretty much everything in between. And so the convenient thing is that we have the lines on the back and the front, so we just kind of match from there to there. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but, you know, and you're going to end up taking off more of that material, but, you know, the closer you get to that line, the less that you need to take off later. So, anyway, it's kind of important to pay attention to the grain, what it's doing over here. Because when you have to switch directions like that, you should always be going downhill. That's, you know, easier said than done sometimes. So I make little relief cuts there, so I can come in and take that piece out. Same here. Alright, and just finished taking off that material. So down here as well. Alright, and do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay. Okay, there we go. So let's take off this end grain right up here. Alright, and then the obvious place to start is probably going to be on the back. We're going to get rid of this corner, so just take it up. And same downward. And you can round it over a little bit. Okay, so now let's go and extend these lines for her hair. The hair and kind of the shawl that she has. Okay. I think that looks well. So you could do whatever profile you'd like. I guess, yeah, we could probably bring it down a little bit further. Yeah. Anyway, I think that'll look good. So that's good right there. Okay, so now let's not go straight to the V-tool. Let's also do this front corner up here. So this is going to be the scariest because we're going to remove a lot of these lines that we have drawn on here, but it needs to happen. So let's go and start it up here. So we're going to take it to pretty much between these two lines of the neck. So let's see. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, good. Same thing down here. Alright, so now we get to redraw most of that stuff. So let's do the neckline. The face is probably going to be the one that's the most difficult to reestablish, but kind of giving her a pointy face. So I think it's a little bit more feminine than a completely round face. Or I might be wrong, I don't know. But that's kind of what I'm going for. And then just kind of round over the top as well. Just a slight radius, you know? And then the hands, just the same. We're going to give it a little bit more definition as we carve it up. Okay, and then over here you could either do the heart shape like that, or you could just come straight across, and then afterward you'll come in with the knife and give it that separation down there. So like that. So just draw a straight across line for now. So that wasn't too bad. So luckily having those lines still there makes a big difference. Okay, now I like to start over here in the hairline and kind of get the face done with, because to me that's the one thing that makes or breaks a carving is the face. So the quicker you get it out of the way, the better the rest of the carving can go. Okay, so let's go and use the V tool and outline the face. So in this case, I want to go pretty much on the line. Okay, and I want to keep the V tool in cutting both the face and the hairline at the same rate, or same angle, if you get what I mean. Okay. But if you do compare the face to this face to the Simple Savior, to the Jesus face, obviously this face is going to be a little bit smaller, and I think that accentuates some of the female characteristics. So here we're just going to do this hairline, and we're actually going to take that all the way up to there. So from here, there, and down. And now we can continue to follow that line over here to the back. Right, so now we have that V-tool line in there. You certainly don't need a V-tool for that, but it makes it a lot easier to do this next part. So what I like to do is, I like to start over here in the hairline, just kind of score it with a knife. So because you have that V-tool line in there, it's much easier to get your knife to follow that path. So I've definitely cut myself doing this, and because I was doing like this and then the knife, well, you know what happens, kind of comes like that. So avoid that. And the easiest way is to kind of keep the wood about 3/4 up the knife right here. So don't let it get to the tip, because when you get to the tip you're not going to have very much control. And if you do, you're going to end up having to use the tip at some point. Brace it down and then put your knife in there and score the line. So if it does go, it goes into the table or something below that, right? But there we go. Or if you can avoid it, keep your fingers from the back of it. So I'm moving my fingers as I go, so that if it does go out, it just goes into the air. Yeah. So right here. And of course, you know, I'm going to obviously break my own rules sometimes, so please don't hound me for it. Okay. We're also going to separate the face. So here, I like to go pretty much straight down, and this one's a little bit harder because it has this curvature to it. Right. So over here, I'm using my thumb as much as possible to put pressure downward. Okay, now I want to score all the way around the face right here. So there we go. Excellent. Okay, so now let's start removing some material. So I want to take off some of the face right here. Okay, and don't worry too much about those necklines. We're going to come back to them. So now we're just kind of doing little V's to push back this material right here and the hair simultaneously. This side's a little bit harder because there's not much to hang on to. Right, but let's see if we can get there. Okay. Okay. Alright, so that's looking good. So now, let's try to round over this face a little bit. So this is one of my favorite ways to hold the knife, because you're almost guaranteed not to cut yourself, unless like you wrap your hand like this, right? But that knife can't travel very far. In fact, it can't even travel into your thumb. And this glove on my right hand is not cut resistant. Or rather, I don't rely on it for cut resistance, I just use it for gripping. So anyway, there we go, like that. Good. Excellent. So yeah, we'll come back and round over the face a little bit, but let's, oh, you know what, let's do that right now. My mind was thinking one thing and my mouth was saying something, but my hands were doing something else. Okay, that looks good. Alright, so let's round over this hair right here. The hair or the veil, the shawl, the head covering. Okay, and the back as well. So it's difficult to get the right balance, I think, because you don't want her to have what looks like a helmet, but you also don't want it to be too thin, you know? So a little bit of trial and error here. So that still looks like a helmet, very much. So let's see. I'm going to try to give it a little bit of a sweep right here and see if it works with the grain. See if that works. Okay. I get all this stuff rounded over. Okay, now can remove all this wood over here with our stop cut. Let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, look at that. That's looking pretty good. So maybe around the face it needs a little bit more cleanup. I don't want it to have kind of like a square look, but you know, kind of more rounded over. Maybe we need to take that, what would be the forehead, back. Sorry for that clicking noise. I'm outside and it's a little windy. You know, I don't have a proper shop to do this in, nor the lighting to do this inside. So I'm not in a sterile environment. I'm outside. And so sometimes you hear the birds, sometimes you hear things falling down. Well, yeah, because I, like you, don't have a, or not like you, but like probably like most people, don't have a very good place to do this sort of thing. So I'm not saying that it's necessary. I'm just saying that I choose not to. Anyway, okay. I think that's good. And if not, then, you know, well, when you carve it, you can make it however you'd like. Let's see. So I want to get rid of all these flat spots from the original surface, because I think even the slightest bit of passing a knife over that makes a big difference. Okay, and let's round it over. Well, actually, let's not do that, because we're going to come back with the knife and, sorry, with the V-tool and fix that up a little bit. Okay, so now let's start working on the hands and the chest. Okay, so let's see. Okay, like this. Okay, now we're pretty much done, believe it or not. We're going to outline the rest of everything that we have going on over here. So we're going to do the hands. So the hands like this. I like to cut it right on the line of the hands, because otherwise my wife tells me that they look like coffee beans and she doesn't like how large they are. So if you go right on the line or just slightly inside the line, you won't have that problem. You have nice, feminine, dainty hands. Sorry if that offends anyone. It's not meant to offend anyone, but you know. Okay, so those are the hands, and we'll obviously separate them and give it a little bit more character. But let's also do the sleeve right here. You could do that one, you know, kind of on the line, outside the line, and then let's do the rest of this garb. And so here's the part that's a little tricky, is this right here. So continue this line and maybe go like that. Give it a little bit of curvature. Same on this side. Give it a little bit of curvature. Right, so it kind of looks like it's sweeping backwards like that. Okay, let's keep on going with the V tool. Okay, there's that. So I think that's good for that side. Let's do the other side. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Then you're going to say, hey, what about these lines over here? Well, these lines, I don't normally take the V tool to it. Instead, I just take my knife, sink it in, and come back. Same with this one. Sink it in, and pull it towards the hands just a little bit. In this case, I do want it deep. So this line down here, I want it deep on both sides, right here and right here. On this vertical one, I only want it deep right here, kind of at the crotch of the elbow. So let's go ahead and do the hands. So outline the hands just a little bit with the knife. Remember, pull with your thumb here if possible. Same thing here. So let's go ahead and outline as much as we can with the knife before we really get into it. So knife. And from here, deep and up. Okay. And we'll do the separation of the hands later. Okay, and then right here, don't go too deep right here on this part right here, because you have that sleeve right there. Then after you pass the sleeve, then you can go deeper with the knife. Okay. Now, right down here. Be careful. This can be where the knife slips on you. All right. Let's do that part. Not too deep. Not too deep. Not too deep. Much deeper now. And you can always do multiple passes. It doesn't need to be once. So there you go. Okay, and score it a little bit. We're already here. Take that piece off. Okay. Now for the sleeves right here. Go ahead and go a little bit deeper, you know. There we go. And right there. Okay, so let's start at these elbows first. So just come down, take off that material right there. Now we're going to take off the material around the hands. And it's just like chip carving. We're just going to make reliefs. We already have our canvas with the drawing on there. So all you need to do is remove the material in certain spots. Okay, and of course right here this chest is a little bit bulged out, like abnormally bulged out, not just like, you know, she has her bosom, but it's kind of carve it back until you think it's appropriate, right? And then remember that there's going to be a neckline there too, so don't take off an awful lot. Okay. Alright, now we're going to take that material down too. kind of curious, folks, how long do you guys typically carve for? Because I'm telling you, right now, my left hand is going a little numb. I'm not gonna lie. And mostly I guess it's because of the way that I have to carve to do these videos. But yeah, my left fingers are tingling right now. So, you know, kind of open and close my grip. Maybe it's because I have a death grip on this thing. I don't know. But anyway, let me know how long it is that you guys carve. I'm kind of curious. Okay, so right here, I'm kind of chamfering that elbow right there. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. Chamfer that elbow. Okay. So did I not carve this right here? I guess not very much. Okay, next up, let's do these sleeves. So, right here, and from here to there. Okay, and that's honestly about as deep as it needs to go between the sleeves right here. Any more than that and you're just kind of asking for trouble, because, well, I can't get the knife in there like this, right? And so you see the angle of the sleeves is about as good as I can get without removing this material right here. And so this being such a small project, you know, you really don't need to get it like perfectly, you know, to get all the material off of there, because if people are looking at it that closely, well then they're probably either carvers or they're being just way too picky with this stuff, you know. Anyway, let's remove some of this material. So right here, take that down. There you go. Now you still have that little hump right here, and the dress kind of comes back like that, which is kind of nice. Okay, and remember, we're going to come back with a number 7 gouge and give this a little bit more texture. So you could take off all these flat spots, or you can leave them, you know. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, and now let's do a little bit of these sleeves. So let's take that down. And let's kind of tuck the sleeve under the dress. Okay, and there we go. Take a little bit of the dress off right there. I'm kind of playing with which one goes where. So this sleeve goes under the dress goes under the hands, and then we gotta downsize those hands a little bit because, yeah, they're just a funny shape right now. Okay. So now, oh, this is not the way to do this. You can see it splitting. Let's see. Well, okay, so let's see what we can do about this. Hey. Yeah. This is tricky because you need to go downhill. And so you may be like, well, it looked like you were going downhill. And you would be wrong. Because the grain is like this. So if I'm going like this, I'm cutting into the grain. So I need to go downhill. And of course, you know, sometimes you may think that you're going downhill, and in fact you're just going uphill. So it's kind of crazy for a wood that seemingly has no grain distinction is so temperamental when it comes to grain direction. So, anyway, there it is. But it's good though, because it, reminds you that you're carving into wood and not into clay. Because otherwise, well then, I guess you might as well go to pottery. Which is nothing wrong with that, I'm sure that has its challenges. Okay. And those little fuzzies like that, they're, they're always tricky to get to. But anyway, there we go. That's good. So now you're just kind of shaping these sleeves to the way that you want them to be. So, kind of give them a little bit of a hollow so it looks, kind of like that. I think that's okay. Let's see, maybe the other one needs a little bit more help. Yeah. Okay, that looks good. Now let's take off this little bit right here. Good. Okay, and let's do this dress. Let's see if we can fix this up anymore. If push comes to shove and you can't really get in there, you can always use a number 3 or number 1. What I mean by that is something like this. So it's kind of like a flat push gouge. So you can kind of just ignore the grain direction and just go straight in. Kind of like a paring motion. But I like the number 3 because it has a little bit of curvature to it, which allows the, it's almost like a camber on a plane. So the planes are cambered, meaning that the edges are flared upward or inward, however you want to describe it, so that they don't dig in. So yeah, the corners don't dig into the material, which is kind of nice. So yeah, that looks pretty good. In fact, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. That worked out pretty well. So here we go. Let's do this number 3. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. So now let's separate these hands and give them a little bit more character. Maybe make them a little bit smaller. So it's funny, in the heat of the moment, it's kind of hard to tell whether it's big, the hands are too big or too small. But then after, 20 minutes of staring at it on the wall, on the shelf, you're like, actually those are too big. So sorry if these end up not the way that, we intended to. I think that's, come on. Okay, and now they look like a little moose print, but what we're going to do is take down these sides right here and separate the top a little bit and take off that peak. That way they look more like fingers and not moose prints. Okay, same thing for the bottom. Okay, down here. Okay, there we go, like that. And you can separate a little bit further with your knife. I'm going to shape this a little bit. Don't like that rough corner right here that we had. Okay, and let's take down more of this material in the back. So I try to remove as much of that square look to it as when we started. Okay, same thing, I want to remove that line right there. Let's give it a once over and see what else we're missing. So obviously the neckline is one of them. Okay, I think those hands look okay. Yep. You know, they could always use a little bit of cleanup, but not terrible. So the neckline, I'm going to shave this in just a little bit more. Okay, so let's do this neckline, and then we'll do that hairline as well. So neckline, something like this. Okay, and for the hairline, kind of gonna go, gosh, about 1/8 of an inch, something like that, separation from the very edge of the hair as it stands right now. So it's not perfect, but you know what, this section right here needs to be pushed in a little bit further. But don't go too deep over here, because otherwise you'll be chasing it all the way on the other side, and if you've ever tried to do that, then you know you're in for a bad day. Okay, let's keep drawing this guy. You definitely don't need to draw this if you're capable, but this has helped me kind of get the line exactly where I want it. So I will continue to draw it. Okay, so now V-tool. The important thing about this V-tool now is we're not going to hold it straight like this. We're going to kind of get the blade to be I don't know how to describe this, kind of tilted towards us, towards the outside of the hairline, I guess. Okay, so we're going to go like that. Okay. Try to stay on that line as much as possible, but, you know, easier said than done. Okay, so now we're going to kind of tuck everything on the front underneath that, so it looks like the hair is underneath a head covering, underneath a veil or something like that, you know? And you can give it a light scoring to make it a little bit easier. And very light, very, very light. It's one of those things in carving that's kind of hard to quantify. Like, how much of the tip of your knife do you have in there? Like, well, is it 1/32 or 1.5 30-seconds? Or even millimeters, like, it's probably a millimeter. Or maybe less than that. So, it's kind of one of those things that you just gotta say, well, for what purpose are you doing it? And the purpose is this. I am trying to make a distinction between this head covering and the hair. So that's as deep as I need to go. And you can see that immediately is recognizable as a head covering and hair. So you don't need to go very far. You know, I've been reading a lot of books about sharpening and such, and it's actually pretty fascinating the things that humans can tell just by intuition. For instance, if you're trying to find the middle of something, humans are actually relatively good at visually locating the approximate center of something. So if you have a piece of wood and you're trying to find where to cut it in the middle, well, just go ahead and take a stab at it, you know, take a pencil and see kind of where it is, you know, just kind of guess. And you'd be surprised that you could probably get it to within 6 inches. Well, sorry, if put into context, if you had like a 2x4 that's 8 feet long, you could probably get it to within 6 inches, right? And we're also very good at detecting imperfections. So our fingertips can notice a grain of sand, a single grain of sand. I forget what the exact measurement of it is, but it's measured in microns. So that's pretty remarkable, I think, you know, as humans, that we could do something like that. And of course, whenever you try to like measure it for real, of course it's not going to be exact, but you know, you can get pretty darn close. So the same here is, you know, you just need a little bit of distinction to give it the character that you need. So anyway, cool facts about that, about the human capability. Okay, let's just clean this up a little bit. Okay, and now for the neckline. Well, let's clean up the face just a little bit as well. So right here. Okay, right here, so put my knife in there. You can also use a V-tool for this. I left mine inside, unfortunately, and, well, here we are. So right there, and now, just kind of carve up to it. There you go. We don't need no V-tool. There it is. So now, we have the neckline and the dress. Maybe a little bit more separation right there. That looks pretty good, I think, you know, so pretty similar. Now the only thing left is to give it a little bit of texture. So I'm going to go ahead and use my number 7. So like I said, just, you know, make sure it doesn't look like a helmet. And I'm not sure if I got, well, you can kind of see there's a very slight indentation right here, which kind of makes it look like, you know, the natural sweep of hair. Let's see if that one has it a little bit more. Kind of. And it's very difficult to do that because the grain, if you get your knife in there, when you come down, you're going downhill, but then when you try to come up, you're going uphill, and so, you know, it's just, yeah, you can see it's tearing out right there, right where the grain changes direction. So one thing you could do is kind of go sideways, but then you have things like that. So anyway, I think it looks great regardless. Man, this knife is pretty impressive, I gotta say. So I was kind of hesitant because the very tip doesn't look like a tip. It's kind of rounded over, and I've had trouble with flex cut knives with them being rounded over like that, but this one seems to be doing just fine like that. So anyway, okay, so number 7, you can also use something larger like this one. This is a 10mm number 7. I think this one is 3/8 of an inch. So this is just one that I use for larger carvings, but it's pretty good at getting the job done. So this is a nice way to give it a little bit of texture, and you don't really have to remove very much. But just kind of give it these very small dimples, you know, kind of make it look like a folkish carving. You know. And the longer you make them on the dress, the more dramatic I would say it looks. Yeah, and be careful with things like that. Don't dig too deep like I did. So otherwise you could ruin it in a heartbeat. Okay, like that. You can always go backwards like this. And you can always switch to the palm tool as well if you need to. How does that look? Right there, and okay. I'm probably very lightly on this veil as well, so here we go, like that. Just make sure it doesn't look like hair, right? Unless that's what you're going for. If you just want hair on there, that's perfectly fine. Okay, I think this carving is done. So there you have it. There is a Mother Mary carved out of a 1x1 using this fancy stencil. And of course, Mr. John Dunkel knife. Hey folks, thank you for watching. I hope that this was entertaining at least, and that you guys try out your carving with or without a stencil. Have fun, and happy carving, folks.